The lawyer's office was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and my grandmother's triumphant tapping of her perfectly manicured nails against the mahogany conference table. I sat quietly, my face carefully neutral as Mr. Davidson, the family attorney, finished reading my grandparents' will. And finally, he concluded, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, regarding our adopted granddaughter, Sarah Mitchell. She is to receive no portion of the estate, as she does not carry the Mitchell bloodline. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 28 years old, I was being erased from my family's legacy because I committed the unforgivable sin of being adopted. It's nothing personal, dear, my grandmother Margaret said, though her smile suggested otherwise. But the Mitchell fortune needs to stay within the true family line. Across the table, my cousins James and Rebecca barely contained their glee. The $40 million estate would now be split primarily between them, with some smaller portions going to various other blood relatives. I understand, I said quietly, gathering my things. Is there anything else, Mr. Davidson? The elderly lawyer shook his head, looking uncomfortable. He'd known me since I was a child, had watched my parents raise me as their own after adopting me at birth. But now, with both my parents gone, killed in a car accident 3 years ago, there was no one left to fight for my place in the family. As I stood to leave, my grandmother's voice stopped me. Oh, and Sarah, we'll need you to vacate the guest house by the end of the month. It's Mitchell property after all. I turned back slowly, meeting her cold blue eyes. Of course, I wouldn't want to impose on the true family line. The guest house had been my home for the past year, ever since I'd returned to help care for my grandfather during his final months. Not that my grandmother had allowed me much contact with him. She'd made sure to limit my visits, claiming he was too tired or too medicated to see me. What my grandmother didn't know was that my grandfather had managed to slip me something during one of my few allowed visits, a key and a hastily scribbled note with an address. I hadn't understood its significance at the time, but now, walking out of the lawyer's office into the bright Texas sunlight, I pulled the crumpled paper from my purse. The address led to a storage facility on the outskirts of Houston. Below it, in my grandfather's shaky handwriting, "Your mother left this for you. The real story is inside. My mother, my birth mother. I'd never known her name. My adoption had been closed, all records sealed at her request. My parents had only told me that she was young, unmarried, and wanted to give me my best chance at life." I drove to the storage facility in a daze, my grandmother's words echoing in my head. Not really part of this family. The same words she'd been using against me since my parents' death, slowly poisoning the rest of the family against me. The storage facility was old, family-owned, far from the sleek modern units that dotted Houston's suburbs. An elderly man sat behind the counter, reading a worn paperback. "Can I help you?" he asked as I approached. I showed him the key and address. "I'm trying to find this unit. It would have been rented by someone, probably about 28 years ago." He adjusted his glasses, examining the key. "Ah, Unit 247. Paid up for 30 years in advance. You must be the daughter." I felt my heart skip. "You remember?" He nodded slowly. "Hard to forget. Young woman, couldn't have been more than 20. Paid cash for 3 decades of storage. Said her daughter would come one day with the key. That'd be you, I reckon?" "Yes," I whispered. "That's me." Unit 247 was at the back of the facility, away from the newer units. The key turned smoothly in the lock, despite its age. Inside, the space was small but meticulously organized. Boxes lined the walls, each carefully labeled in neat handwriting. The first box I opened contained papers, hundreds of them. Letters, documents, photographs. On top was an envelope with my name on it, the paper yellowed with age. "My dearest Sarah," it began, "if you're reading this, then you finally found your way here. My name is Catherine Edwards, and I am your birth mother. But that's not the whole truth. There's so much you need to know about who you are, and who the Mitchells really are." I sank to the floor, my hands shaking as I read on. Catherine Edwards had worked for Mitchell Industries in the early 1990s, right out of college. She'd been brilliant, ambitious, and caught the eye of the company's CEO, my grandfather, Robert Mitchell. "The affair lasted 6 months," she wrote. "I was young, naive, and believed him when he said he'd leave his wife. When I discovered I was pregnant, he changed. Suddenly, I was a threat to everything he'd built. He offered me money to disappear, to have an abortion. When I refused, The threats began. The next box contained proof, letters, recordings, bank statements. My grandfather had orchestrated an elaborate scheme. Catherine would give up her baby for adoption, tell no one who the father was, and disappear with a substantial payoff. The baby, me, would be adopted by his son and daughter-in-law, who had been struggling to conceive. Your parents, John and Mary Mitchell, never knew the truth, Catherine explained in her letter. They were good people who desperately wanted a child. Robert arranged everything through private channels, ensuring the adoption would appear completely random. They gave you the life and love I couldn't provide. But Catherine hadn't just disappeared. She'd spent the next 28 years building a case, gathering evidence not just about my true parentage, but about the Mitchell family's darker secrets. Corporate fraud, tax evasion, decades of carefully hidden crimes that had built their fortune. I'm not proud of my role in this, she wrote. I was young and foolish, and I let them manipulate me into giving you up. But I never stopped watching, never stopped gathering evidence. Everything you need to prove who you are, and what they've done, is in these boxes. I sat there for hours, reading through document after document. The story that emerged was staggering. I wasn't just adopted. I was Robert Mitchell's illegitimate granddaughter, with more Mitchell blood than my cousins James and Rebecca, whose own paternity was called into question by some of the documents I found. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother. Don't forget, end of the month. The guest house needs to be cleared out. I looked at my phone, then back at the boxes of evidence. My grandfather's last gift hadn't just been a key. It had been the truth, and with it, the power to reclaim my place in the family. Not as an adopted outsider, but as Robert Mitchell's flesh and blood. The question was, what would I do with this information? I spent the next week methodically going through every box in the storage unit, organizing the evidence into categories. Financial crimes, personal documents, proof of my parentage. Catherine Edwards hadn't just been thorough, she'd been brilliant in her documentation. But the most shocking discovery came in a hidden compartment at the back of the unit. Behind a false wall, I found a laptop and dozens of hard drives, all meticulously labeled and dated. Catherine had continued gathering evidence long after she left Mitchell Industries, tracking the family's activities through a network of contacts and sophisticated surveillance. The laptop contained encrypted files that took me days to access. When I finally broke through, I found myself staring at proof of crimes that went far beyond simple corporate fraud. The Mitchells hadn't just been hiding money. They'd been stealing it, systematically looting their own company and its employees for decades. My phone buzzed. Another text from my grandmother. The movers will be at the guest house tomorrow at 9 a.m. Be ready. I looked around my small living room, already packed into boxes. After 3 years of losing everything, my parents, my place in the family, and now my home, I should have felt defeated. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time, I held real power. That evening, I called the one person I knew I could trust. Michael Chen, my father's old friend and the former CFO of Mitchell Industries. He resigned shortly after my parents' death, citing ethical concerns that no one had taken seriously. Sarah? His voice was warm but concerned. Are you okay? I heard about the will reading. I need your help, Uncle Mike. I said, using the nickname from my childhood. Can you meet me somewhere private? We met at his house an hour later. His wife, Susan, who'd always treated me like a daughter, took one look at my face and disappeared into the kitchen to make tea. I spread out some of the key documents on their dining room table. Michael's eyes widened as he reviewed the evidence. My God, he whispered. I knew they were hiding something, but this, he looked up at me. Do you understand what you have here? I nodded, enough to destroy them. But I need your help to make sure everything is rock solid before I move forward. He picked up one of the hard drives. These financial records, they confirm what I suspected when I resigned. They've been running a massive Ponzi scheme through the company's pension fund. Thousands of employees could lose everything if it collapses, which is exactly why we need to expose it now, I said firmly, before more people get hurt. Over the next few days, Michael helped me organize and verify the evidence. We brought in a forensic accountant he trusted and a lawyer specializing in corporate fraud. Everything had to be perfect. The Mitchells wouldn't go down without a fight. Meanwhile, I moved out of the guest house as ordered, finding a small apartment nearby. My grandmother sent a triumphant email to the entire family announcing that the adopted outsider had finally been removed from Mitchell property. What she didn't know was that I spent my days in meetings with federal prosecutors, SEC investigators, and journalists, carefully building a case that would expose decades of Mitchell family crimes. The encrypted files on Catherine's laptop revealed an elaborate network of shell companies, offshore accounts, and fraudulent transactions. My grandparents hadn't just been protecting the Mitchell bloodline. They'd been protecting an empire built on theft and deception. One afternoon, as I was reviewing more documents with Michael, my cousin James unexpectedly showed up at his house. Well, he smirked from the doorway. Already plotting your revenge, Sarah? How pathetic. I calmly gathered the papers, sliding them into my bag. What do you want, James? Grandmother sent me to deliver a message. Back off, whatever you're planning. You're not going to win against us. I stood up slowly, meeting his gaze. And what exactly am I planning, James? His smirk faltered slightly. We know you're meeting with people, asking questions about family business. It stops now, or what? I stepped closer. You'll cut me out of the will. Take away my home. Oh wait, you've already done that. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face. He wasn't used to this version of me, the one who didn't back down, who wasn't afraid anymore. Just remember who you're dealing with, he said finally, trying to sound threatening. The Mitchells have ways of handling problems. After he left, Michael turned to me with concern. They're getting nervous. We need to move faster. He was right. That evening, I received an encrypted email from one of Catherine's old contacts at Mitchell Industries. The company was preparing to announce massive layoffs, a move designed to cover up the missing pension funds before anyone discovered the truth. I made one final visit to the storage unit, gathering the last pieces of evidence we needed. As I locked up, the elderly manager approached me. Your mother left something else for you, he said, holding out an envelope. Asked me to give it to you once you'd had time to go through everything else. Inside was a single photograph. Catherine Edwards holding newborn me, tears streaming down her face. On the back, she'd written, "Remember who you are. You're stronger than all of them." The day of reckoning arrived on a bright Monday morning. I sat in the Mitchell Industries boardroom, not as a family outcast, but as the key witness in a federal investigation. FBI agents were simultaneously raiding Mitchell properties across the country, while SEC investigators combed through company servers. My grandmother's face when she was escorted into the building by federal agents was something I'll never forget. Gone was the superior smirk, replaced by shocked disbelief as she saw me sitting beside the lead investigator. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Sarah, what have you done?" "Please be seated, Mrs. Mitchell," the FBI agent said firmly. "We have some questions about Mitchell Industries' financial practices." James and Rebecca were brought in next, followed by other family members and executives. Each looked more stunned than the last to see me there. The lawyer they'd hastily called was already sweating as he reviewed the evidence we'd gathered. "Before we begin," I said, standing up, "I think there's something you should all know." I pulled out the DNA test results we'd run using samples from the storage unit. It turns out I am a Mitchell by blood after all. Grandfather made sure of that when he arranged my adoption to cover up his affair with Catherine Edwards. The room erupted in chaos. My grandmother's face went white as she realized the implications. James jumped up, shouting about lies and fabrications, but the evidence was irrefutable. "That's impossible," my grandmother whispered. "Robert would never." "He did," I said quietly, "and then he spent the rest of his life watching you and the rest of the family steal from the company he built. That's why he gave me the key to Catherine's storage unit. He wanted the truth to come out." Over the next several hours, federal agents laid out the case against the Mitchell family. The pension fund fraud, the tax evasion, the systematic looting of company assets, all of it documented in perfect detail thanks to Catherine's years of careful observation. "You've ruined us," Rebecca spat, tears streaming down her face. "Your own family?" "No," I corrected her. "You ruined yourselves. I'm just making sure the people you stole from get justice." The indictments came fast and hard. 15 family members and executives were charged with various financial crimes. The company's stock plummeted as the news broke, but I was ready for that too. Working with Michael and a team of ethical investors, we prepared a restructuring plan to save the company and protect its employees. The pension funds would be restored through the seizure of the family's hidden assets, and a new management team would take over. My grandmother and several others took plea deals to avoid longer sentences. James and Rebecca fought the charges but were ultimately convicted. The Mitchell family empire, built on lies and theft, crumbled in a matter of weeks. As for me, a judge ruled that as Robert Mitchell's biological granddaughter and the whistleblower who exposed the fraud, I was entitled to a significant portion of the recovered assets. But I didn't want their money. Instead, I established a foundation to help the employees who'd been hurt by the family's crimes. 1 year later, I stood in the renovated Mitchell Industries lobby, now renamed Phoenix Technologies, watching employees arrive for work. The company had survived and was thriving under new leadership, built on transparency and ethical practices. "Your mother would be proud," Michael said, joining me at the window. Catherine spent years gathering evidence, hoping someone would finally expose the truth. "Have you heard from her?" I asked. We tried to find Catherine after everything came out, but she seemed to have disappeared completely. "No, but her lawyer sent this." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, written in the same neat handwriting I come to know so well from the storage unit documents. "My dearest Sarah," it began, "by now you know the whole truth. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to help you through this, but you needed to find your own strength to fight this battle your own way. I've spent the last 28 years making sure you would have the weapons you needed when the time came. I'll never forgive myself for giving you up, but watching you from afar, seeing the woman you've become, I know I made the right choice in leaving you those files. You've done what I never could, brought justice to a family that thought they were above the law. I'm getting older now, and my work is done. Know that I love you, and I'm so proud of the way you've handled everything. You took down an empire not for revenge, but for justice. You're everything I hoped you would be and more. Your mother, Catherine." I folded the letter carefully, thinking about the long road that had led to this moment. The Mitchells had thought they could erase me, deny my existence, and steal with impunity. Instead, they'd brought about their own downfall. That evening, I visited the storage unit one last time. The elderly manager was still there, tending to his beloved facility. "Closing it out?" he asked as I turned in the key. "Yes," I smiled. "The truth is finally out. Thanks for keeping it safe all these years." He nodded sagely. "Your mother knew you'd come eventually. Said you had the look of someone who'd fight for what's right." As I drove home, I thought about family, not the one that had rejected me, but the one I'd built. Michael and Susan, who'd stood by me, the employees who'd trusted me to make things right, and Catherine, the mother I'd never known but who'd given me the tools to find justice. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Board meeting tomorrow. Ready to keep changing the world?" I smiled, typing back a response. The Mitchells had thought blood was everything, that only their narrow definition of family mattered. They'd never understood that true legacy isn't about money or names. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. And in the end, the adopted daughter they tried to erase had become the one to save everything they'd nearly destroyed.